On February 26, 2022, just 2 days after Russia invaded Ukraine, something happened that most people didn't notice. There were no bombs, no missiles, no soldiers, just a press release. The United States and the European Union announced that Russia would be removed from the SWIFT system. At the time, this was presented as the ultimate move, the financial kill switch. The logic was simple: no SWIFT, no money. No money, no economy. No economy, no war. And honestly, most of us believed it. It was assumed Russia would collapse. The ruble would become worthless. Putin would step back. But today, where we stand now, 2.5 years have passed. Russia is still standing. And right at this point, we need to ask a different question. What if removing Russia from SWIFT didn't end the war, but started the end of something much bigger? Let's slow down a bit, because SWIFT sounds complicated, but it's actually quite simple. SWIFT doesn't hold money. It doesn't move money. It sends messages. When a bank in New York wants to make a payment to a bank in Tokyo, SWIFT sends this message: "This transfer is approved." That's it. But here's the critical point. Nearly all international payments depend on this message. Before SWIFT, international payments were slow, messy, and unreliable. SWIFT fixed that. By the 2000s, it became unavoidable. By 2024, it was a system connecting more than 11,000 banks, processing tens of millions of messages a day. It became the nervous system of global finance. And like any nervous system, cut it, and the body freezes. SWIFT is based in Belgium, so officially it is neutral. But the reality no one wants to say out loud is this: most global payments are made in US dollars, and dollar transactions almost always pass through New York. So when the US says, "You're cut off from dollar clearing," SWIFT suddenly loses its function. That's why SWIFT is a weapon. Not because America owns it, but because America sits at the center of the system. What happened in 2022 felt shocking, but it wasn't new. The same thing had happened before. In 1914, during World War I, Britain froze German assets. It crushed Germany financially. And in doing so, it scared everyone, because it showed that money was no longer neutral. 30 years later, Britain lost the pound's reserve currency status. In 1979, the US froze Iran's assets. It worked, but it taught the world a lesson. If your money is in someone else's system, it's not really yours. Every time this happens, the same thing follows. Countries start looking for exits. In 2014, after Crimea, Russia received a warning. Not a full strike, but a clear message. If we want to, we can do this. And Russia believed it. They started preparing. They sold US treasuries. They bought gold. They built their own payment systems. They made trade deals without the dollar. In other words, they didn't leave their money in someone else's hands. For years, people said Russia can't disconnect from the global system. But in 2022, we saw that it could. It wasn't easy. It wasn't painless. But they survived. When Russia was removed from SWIFT, the panic was real. The ruble collapsed. A TMS ran out of cash. Markets were shut down. Then something no one expected happened. Russia adapted. Interest rates were raised. Energy was sold in rubles. Trade shifted from west to east. And the most frightening part, it worked. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. And every country watching thought the same thing. If this can be done to Russia, it can be done to us. The biggest damage wasn't done to Russia. It was done to trust. Because the moment you freeze $300 billion of a country's reserves, you change the rules forever. China noticed. India noticed. Saudi Arabia noticed. Brazil noticed. They didn't object. They didn't complain. They adapted. More trade in local currencies. More gold. More alternative payment systems. Not because they hate the United States, but because they don't want to experience what Russia did. This is a repeating pattern. A country controls the system, uses it as a weapon. The target adapts, everyone quietly prepares. The weapon stops working. We are now in stage 4. The dollar is still strong. SWIFT is still big. But the direction has changed. And when direction changes, momentum follows. The part most people miss is this. Financial weapons don't fail instantly. They fail slowly, quietly. By the time everyone agrees that something has changed, it already has. The United States didn't lose its power overnight. It taught the world how to live without it. And once alternatives exist, dominance never lasts forever. This isn't about hating America. It's about understanding incentives. And right now the incentive is very clear. Never let your money be controlled by someone else. That's the lesson SWIFT taught. And that's why February 2022 will be remembered as the moment the world quietly began to move on. Like and sub